The ultimate revenge. How empaths crush narcissists with kindness. I want you to settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and breathe with me for a moment. Feel the quiet hum of your heart just beneath your ribs. Notice how the world around you seems so eager to label softness as weakness. Yet here you are, a listener, a witness to the hidden currents that swirl beneath polite smiles and practiced politeness. We often mistake kindness for weakness. We see a gentle word and expect meekness in return. But we forget, the truly kind hold oceans of strength beneath a calm surface. We underestimate the ones who feel the most, the ones whose hearts beat in tune with every subtle shift in someone else's mood, who hear not only the words spoken, but the ones left hanging in the air. These souls who carry others' pain as though it were their own. They walk with a quiet power that many will never understand. We call them empaths. But today, I want you to recognize a rarer breed. Not fragile, not naive. These empaths do not bend or break in the face of cruelty. They do not lash out in fury or seek revenge with thunderous roars. No, they possess a weapon far more precise, far more lethal: clarity. They are the super empaths, and they don't fight with fists. They dismantle narcissists and manipulators with the unrelenting force of truth. Most people see charm. They are dazzled by winning smiles and smooth words. But you, yes, you listening right now, you see calculation. You see how every compliment is measured, how every gesture is choreographed to elicit exactly the response the mask wearer desires. They present confidence, a bright, shimmering veneer meant to blind you. But you see fear, fear so deep it pulses under every boast, every bravado-laced sentence. Before the mask slips, you spot the cracks. Not because you're paranoid, but because you've studied the pattern. You know the dance steps by heart. You've witnessed it, the love bomb that rushes in like fireworks, dazzling you into believing you've finally found your savior. Then comes the devalue, subtle at first, a careless slight, a whispered doubt seated in your mind. And when you're confused enough, weakened just so, the discard follows, sudden, merciless, leaving you to pick up the pieces. Then, almost as if nothing happened, the repeat. But you've stepped off that carousel. You refuse to be a pawn in a game you've mastered. You're no longer chasing approval or trying to earn a place in their hollow kingdom. Instead, you stand back and observe. You watch the game unfold without ever laying down a token. That's what makes you dangerous and beautiful. You see the strings. You see every subtle tug, and more importantly, you see the hands pulling them. You watch, unafraid, because you know that once you choose to speak, once you choose to shine a light on those hidden hands, the illusion will shatter. And in that moment of clarity, the super empath becomes unstoppable. A narcissist thrives in chaos. They build their empire on emotional storms, hurricanes of accusation, gales of guilt, torrents of blame, and then they stand back and watch you struggle for breath. But what happens when you don't flinch, don't argue, don't beg? Picture the tempest swirling around you, raised voices, sharp words hurled like lightning, confusion raining down in sheets. The air crackles with their fury, but you remain rooted. You feel the wind tugging at your resolve, but your spine stays straight. What happens when the storm rises and you stand still? Your calmness becomes unbearable to them. It's like a mirror reflecting their own volatility back at them, and that reflection hurts more than any accusation. Your stillness whispers a truth they cannot bear to hear. I am no longer available to be controlled. You're not cold, you're clear. And clarity is poison to the narcissist's illusion. They can spin your words into knots, but they cannot tie you down. They can rewrite history until it makes no sense to anyone but themselves, but they cannot erase the quiet conviction in your mind. You know what happened. You've learned something they dread you discovering, that manipulation isn't about strength, it's about lack of identity, lack of stability, lack of real self-worth. They confuse intensity for intimacy, treating every dramatic gesture as proof of devotion. But you have stopped interpreting their control as love. You no longer mistake their shouting for concern, their drama for depth. Now, when they lash out, you no longer react. You respond, sometimes with words, often with silence, because silence isn't passive. It's powerful. It's, I see you, I understand you, and I choose me. In that choice, you transform every hurt into fuel. Every doubt becomes an ember of self-respect. You alchemize pain into power, forging a new truth. Your worth is not defined by how loudly someone proclaims it, but by how quietly you carry your own. So listen, as if I'm speaking directly into your ear, stand in your presence. Let your stillness speak volumes. Let your clarity dismantle their chaos. In the echo of your silence, discover your strength and watch as their storms die down, one by one. When you stop arguing, there's a shift, subtle at first, but powerful. When you stop explaining, the silence you leave behind starts to echo louder than all the words you ever spoke. When you stop hoping they'll finally understand, something in the air changes. They feel it, not in your words because you're done speaking. They feel it in your absence, in your stillness, in the space where your energy used to be. You've stopped orbiting their emotional gravity. You're no longer spinning in circles, pulled in by their crises, their chaos, their manipulations. And that's when it hits them. Not a wound from you, not a confrontation, but something much more unsettling. They are terrified, not because you hurt them, but because you've become immune to their poison. You no longer flinch at the sound of their voice. You no longer bend when they push, or bleed when they withdraw. You're no longer trying to fix what you never broke. And without your attention, without your reaction, without your light to feed on, they're left with the one thing they've tried to avoid all along themselves. You're no longer the mirror they need to see themselves. You're the wall that reflects back nothing. No emotion, no validation, no supply, just emptiness. And for them, that is the most unbearable truth. That is their worst nightmare. You don't need closure anymore. Because one day, it just clicked. You saw it clearly. Closure from a narcissist is an illusion. A dangling thread they leave behind to keep you reaching, explaining, questioning. They leave doors cracked open, not because they care, but because control thrives in ambiguity. And as long as the door is open, even a little, they know you might walk back through it. But you slammed that door. Not with rage, not with revenge, but gently, quietly, with compassion for yourself. Because you finally realized you don't need them to validate the pain. You don't need them to understand the damage. You don't need them to confess. You didn't wait for them to admit what they did. You admitted it to yourself. You looked at the truth, no matter how much it hurt, and in that moment, you became free. Empathy is one of the most powerful gifts a person can have. It's not something you can fake or pretend to feel. It comes from deep within. It's the ability to sense what others are going through, to understand unspoken emotions, and to truly feel the weight of someone else's world. When you're an empath, you notice the subtle changes in tone, energy, and expression. You feel what others hide. You sense their sadness, frustration, and even the emptiness they don't talk about. But even though this ability can bring deep connection and understanding, it's important to remember that empathy is not permission for people to hurt you. Just because you can see someone's pain doesn't mean you should let them pour it into you. Just because you understand where their wounds come from doesn't mean it's your job to carry their burden or let them cut you with the very pain they refuse to deal with. Your compassion is not a reason for someone to treat you poorly. Understanding someone's past doesn't mean you have to excuse their harmful present. You can feel for them, but that doesn't mean you let them drain you. This is what a super empath knows deep in their soul. A super empath doesn't stop feeling. They simply learn to stop taking in other people's pain as if it's their own. They recognize the difference between helping and absorbing, between supporting and self-sacrificing. They become aware of how easily the chaos of others can slip beneath the surface and begin to steal their peace, and they make the choice to no longer allow that. They still hold space. They listen, they care, they feel, but they don't abandon themselves in the process. They understand that caring for others shouldn't mean hurting themselves. And so, the super empath begins to create healthy boundaries. These boundaries aren't punishments or walls to push others away. They're signs of growth. They're quiet declarations of self-worth. Boundaries are formed not from anger or rejection, but from a calm, clear knowing that your well-being matters. You set them not because you're bitter or cold, but because you finally learned that your value is not determined by how much pain you can absorb. You don't exist to be someone else's emotional punching bag. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to argue to prove the truth. You don't need to match the noise with more noise. You understand that the truth, in its purest form, doesn't need to be defended loudly. It simply stands firm, and that's what you do. You stand. You stay rooted in your truth. You remain calm in your energy. You stay connected to your sense of self, even when they try to drag you into emotional storms. You don't let yourself be pulled into their games. You don't allow their lies, their manipulations, or their confusion to define your experience. You don't feel the need to correct every false narrative or expose every hidden motive, because your calm speaks louder than their chaos. Your stillness, your grounded energy, it rattles them. They don't know what to do with someone who refuses to break, who doesn't bend to their control. And the real power, it's in your growth. You don't fight back with vengeance. You don't try to destroy them. You rise above. You evolve. You move beyond their reach. Your growth becomes the very thing that separates you from their cycle of control. They wanted to shrink you, but instead, you expanded. You didn't give them a battle. They expected rage, revenge, retaliation, but you gave them nothing but your peace. You didn't lower yourself to their level. You didn't respond with hate. Instead, you healed. And healing is the greatest response you can ever give to someone who tried to break you. You stop waiting for the apology they'll never give. You stop needing their acknowledgement. You no longer sit in pain hoping they'll finally admit what they did. Because you've become someone who doesn't need the closure they were never capable of giving it. They hope to keep you tangled in emotional chaos, to feed off your reactions. But you chose silence over shouting. You chose detachment over drama. You didn't need to bring them down. You allowed them to show their true nature all on their own. Their own behavior became their downfall. Their emptiness spoke louder than any words you could have used. And in all of this, you found your true strength. You learned that peace is not weakness, it's the loudest form of power. You chose stillness when the storm raged. You stayed grounded when everything in them tried to shake you. You became the mirror they couldn't stand, the light that exposed their shadows. You didn't fall, you rose. You walked away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You didn't scream, you didn't beg, you didn't chase. You stood tall. You walked with grace. You held your head high, and that's what truly dismantled their control. Not anger, not revenge, but the simple truth that you are no longer theirs to play with. No more war, no more wounds, just quiet, unstoppable clarity. Just the steady, beautiful strength of someone who knows who they are, who honors their heart, and who refuses to be pulled into anyone else's darkness. And that, more than anything, is your power. And that's what they never expected. So now you walk away, not broken, but reborn. Not the same version of you who once tolerated the chaos, explained yourself endlessly, or carried guilt that was never yours to begin with. This version of you doesn't need to be validated to know they're valuable. You don't need them to understand your worth. You've already claimed it, quietly, fully, and without negotiation. You don't seek justice in the way they expect. You are justice embodied in calm, grounded truth. You carry it in how you move, in what you allow, in what you'll never again accept. Because once you've seen the game, you never play it again. You stop taking the bait. You stop dancing in the drama. And when you stop playing, they stop winning. You are not heartless, even if others try to make you feel that way. You haven't turned cold. You've simply stopped giving more than you can afford to lose. You've finally learned how to stop pouring your energy into someone who only ever knew how to drain you. You didn't change for the worse. You grew wiser. You learned the difference between giving out of love and being taken advantage of in the name of love. You've stopped bending just to keep someone else from breaking you. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. That's healing. You are not mean or harsh. You've just stopped apologizing for valuing your peace. You no longer feel guilty for choosing yourself. You now understand that your well-being, your space, your energy, they matter. They are sacred. And because of that, you guard them. Not with anger, but with intention. Not with bitterness, but with strength. You are kind, but your kindness now comes with boundaries. You are generous, but your generosity no longer comes at the cost of your soul. You are compassionate, but no longer a doormat. And that shift, that change in you is what truly unsettles those who once benefited from your confusion. Your clarity, your newfound strength, your unwillingness to be used, it disarms them. To those who depended on your silence, your voice is now too loud. To those who manipulated your kindness, your confidence is now too firm. You've become someone they can't twist, someone they can't fool, someone who no longer dances to the tune of guilt or fear. Your transformation threatens their comfort, and your peace reminds them of everything they cannot control anymore. If this video is reaching you in a moment of reflection, know this: you are not alone. There are many walking this path right now. Many who have felt lost in their own compassion. Many who once believed they had to keep giving to be worthy of love. Many who have finally come to understand that love without boundaries isn't love, it's sacrifice. So if you've walked through the fire of emotional chaos and come out stronger, speak up in the comments. Share your story, your strength, your survival. Let others know there is light on the other side. That the peace you're feeling now, it's real, and it's earned. But if you're still in the middle of the storm, still trying to figure out where you end and where they begin, stay anchored. Hold tight. You are not what they tried to convince you of. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not too much. You are becoming exactly who you're meant to be, stronger, wiser, more grounded. You are a work in progress, and progress is powerful. Like this video, if it resonates with you. Subscribe to stay connected with more guidance, more truth, more reminders of your strength. And if you feel called, share this with someone who needs to hear it too. Remember this always: empathy is not a weakness. It's a gift, a strength, a shield and a sword when paired with wisdom. When your kind heart is balanced with clear vision, no one can use it against you again. You're not too kind. You're just learning to be kind without losing yourself, and that changes everything.